Anastasia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Janelle.
I remember I was saying when we first spoke, I swear to God, I was manifesting having a conversation like this for like ever since it was happening. And I thought, I really have a platform on this podcast to really kind of talk about someone's individual experience going through this. And I thought, oh, it's happening now. It's so sensitive. No one's going to want to talk on like a podcast. So I just left it. And then when I went into the Facebook groups that I'm part of, whose name is right on the top asking to be a guest on people's podcasts, and it was you. And I was like, thank you, universe, let's go. And I just felt the immense gratefulness to be able to provide you with a platform to give everyone kind of a firsthand experience of what the hell is going on and basically how to see it from your eyes because you're experiencing it. So like I said, I'm just so thankful that you're here.
Thank you.
So I want to jump into it. You are right now in Italy, staying at a friend's house.
Yes.
How far is that one flight for you? So where in the Ukraine were you?
So when everything started, I was in Kiev, and then no, I was actually on the business trip from Kiev to western part of Ukraine, and then I stayed in western part of Ukraine for several days, and then crossed the border was Hungary, because it was easier to cross. Lines on the border with Poland are just crazy. My friend with her daughter, she was standing there for, I believe, 16 hours, just standing in line, okay? And afterwards, we drove all the time. It was a car drive. And then from there to Italy, it was about 1,200 kilometers. We measure it in kilometers, so yeah.
Us as well.
Okay, yeah. So it was a bit of a drive. Mm-hmm.
And I know when we were talking the last time, you were saying a lot of people got in their cars and just left immediately. And what could have been a 4 or 5 hour drive to get somewhere became 16 hours. So you're kind of just sitting there in traffic, not really knowing what's going to happen. So you're trapped essentially.
Yeah, because number one, too many people are leaving, so eventually there's a huge traffic jam. Number two, there were the main roads. Russian soldiers were bombing, so you couldn't take the main road, you couldn't take the main highway. You had to go through villages, and that's always longer, right? So, and then at some points there was no gas. So, like when you were traveling, you had to think of how much gas you have and will it last, because gas stations were closed. They didn't have any gas, and if you were stuck and you needed gas, you would be at the gas station for, I don't know, for 4 to 5 hours, because the line was so big. So the ones that still had gas, you would have to wait so long. So that's why it took forever.
One of the biggest things we talked about initially when we first chatted is the fragility of life, essentially. And you were saying you were on a business trip. Like you have a pretty like higher up job. Like you run a business consulting. Like you're living a very normal life as any of us here sitting in Toronto, Canada are. And all of a sudden, like you said, you're on a business trip. You have one suitcase with you. You're not even at home where you are when this all went down. And you realize at that moment, you're just like, all I have right now is what I have with me and the relationships of people that are around me. And it's like, that's all you have. What's going through your head in that moment? This is such a tough question, but what's going in your head the moment you realize what's actually happening? And given the part of the world that you live in, I know the political relationship between Russia and Ukraine has always been rough. So as civilians living in Ukraine, are you kind of always worried about this?
Yes and no, for two reasons. We already had a war in eastern part of Ukraine, in Donetsk area. So when Russians invaded Crimea and eastern part of Ukraine, it was 8 years ago. So there was some kind of conflict still going on in there, right? So of course we had all the information from the US that there are so many troops around the waters. But what we thought it would just be, just another invasion into eastern part of Ukraine. And yeah, it's a very bad notion, but you kind of get used to it in 8 years. Okay, like you get
Wow.
used that there is war somewhere in the eastern part, but it doesn't bother you because you're in the central part. You're still having your job, you're still having your savings, you're still having your parents, your apartments, everything. So that doesn't, yeah, it's like, it's like for you thinking of the war in Afghanistan or in Syria. And it was the same for us. We all knew there was a war in Syria, right? But, it's somewhere over there. Now, if some of you are on a business trip right now, then, I encourage you to look at what you have with you. Like you probably have several suits, several pair of shoes, and then I don't know, like I always have my webinar lamp with me because, and then and I had some materials for the workshops because we were on the business trip doing a workshop for a huge auto dealership. Everything was fine, right? And then just imagine that's everything is left because like I left everything in Kyiv, even soup in my refrigerator, because it was supposed for my husband to come back and to get that soup, to eat that soup. So yeah, what it hits you now, it's funny how your mind works. And I think it's also one of the issues why when there's a fire in the huge building, for example, why people don't get out. It's because your mind is telling you it's not possible. And I think you remember there was this huge and awful fire in the skyscraper in London several years ago when lots of people died just because they were sleeping, and your mind tells you it's not possible. Okay, so for us, we were on a business trip. I woke up from roaring sounds of airplanes, and roaring sounds, and then boom. But again, like you think, well, fireworks probably. So I woke up, my dad called me and he said, Anastasia, the war has started. You have to, get into a car and go to a safer place closer to Polish border, which is
More
always been
west. Yep.
considered, more west. And I told him, no, I have work here to do. I'm getting ready. So I put on my makeup, my suit, and I was all ready to go to a workshop. So yeah.
It just goes to show, like you said, it's kind of always in the back of your mind, it's happening, but you almost don't take it seriously enough. Your dad is calling you, telling you it's begun, like get out wherever you are, like start leaving now. And you're like, I got work to do.
Exactly. Just,
when you look back a couple weeks ago, are you just like, what? Like, how did I try to live like just a normal day?
Exactly. But then it doesn't hit you.
I know. You're almost numb to it.
Exactly. You're in shock, I guess. So yeah, and then my client called, and of course they said we had to cancel everything. Yeah, but for us, it was still, we were thinking it would be like 2 days in the western part of Ukraine, and then we can go back to Kyiv. But that didn't happen yet.
And you, as you say that, you almost like giggle because you're just like, how could I be so naive?
Yes. But you only can say it when you look back, right?
Yeah. Hindsight's always 2020. I want to, another thing that we talked about initially, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is you made a good point of how people look at the word refugee and what refugee means to them. And I loved what you said about that because you never think you're ever going to be a refugee. I know living in Canada, our prime minister gets a lot of shit because he allows in a lot of refugees. A big population influx came from the Syrian refugees. And there's a big population of Canada that don't approve of him as a prime minister because of that. The same thing with US, where they allow in a lot of immigrants and their whole thing is you don't even take care of your own people, blah, 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 blah. Like I said, you think refugees, it's like some serious war happening, blah, 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 blah. And you said you felt the same way. And then all of a sudden, one day you wake up and technically you're in that category. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, exactly. War makes you rethink so many things. And one of those was after I crossed the border, I saw rows and rows of cars with women being drivers, women and kids on the back seat. women, kids, women, kids, women, kids, because men are not allowed out of the country now. And the majority of them, they don't want to leave. They just want to stay and fight, right? That's what they have to do to protect their land. And so when I saw all those women, the eyes was horror. And like some of them are driving very good cars. It's not like they're driving, some trash. No, good cars, nicely dressed, kids nicely dressed, but this huge, scare in their eyes. And I was looking at them and thinking, gosh, these people are refugees. And then when I looked at my friends and I realized who is a refugee, I realized, marketing director of a huge clinic, PR director of a huge company, and HR director. So, women educated, well-educated, several degrees, speaking several languages. And I was like, oh, wait, but they are refugees now. So I kind of questioned myself because I always had this bias about refugees. I was thinking that refugees are people, they don't want to work, they just don't want to use welfare, they're almost criminals, not looking nice, not smelling nice. And I'm just sharing my perspective. You might not think this way, and that's great.
Tons of people do, so don't hold back.
Okay. Yeah, so, but I'm very raw. And you would look down on refugees. You would think the same things that you just told me about governments and citizens not approving of that. But here you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad there is Poland, there are countries closer to our borders who are just, they're so hospitable. They open their arms and they accept those ladies, because if it weren't for them, where do you go if you don't have the money to last you for even a week? Like some people don't have savings, right? And the majority of my girlfriends do not have savings. So yeah, I would encourage everybody listening to this podcast to not just see a refugee, but see a person in that refugee and think that, number one, I don't know their story. Number two, they could be more educated than us. Okay. They could have been holding beautiful positions, but work equals everything. It makes everybody the same level.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, all the refugees that have come to Canada over the decades, a lot of those are some of the top doctors in their countries. You know what I mean? Some of the top CEOs. And they come to a new country as an immigrant or a refugee or not knowing the language, and everyone assumes like they're the bottom of the barrel. And it's like, that is such a naive and narrow way of looking at it. I just don't get it. But I mean, we're both of us are saying like we can succumb to that kind of knowledge very quickly until it's us in those shoes.
So true.
Yeah. I want to ask you, a lot of what we see on the news and like, we're getting a lot of media here in Canada. And I think a lot of it is to do with, I follow people that live in the Ukraine. The girl who actually created my template for my podcast website lives in Ukraine. She's a website developer. And so I've been following all of her stories, but we talk about a lot of people and going into the topic of refugees again, we talk about a lot of people, you included, who have just fled the country. But what does that look like in practice? You talked a lot about like, we just had to get into cars and just start driving. How difficult was it to cross borders? I read somewhere that unless you're actually a Ukrainian citizen, you can't actually like leave, or you can't actually become like refugee status. So I'm sure there's lots of people that are living in Ukraine who aren't Ukrainian citizens. So what's happening? Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just asked you like 10 questions in one, but feel free to jump on any of them.
How to cross it and who can cross it, right?
Yeah. So, and what that looked like from your personal experience. I don't want you to just give us like how it happened, like what happens. Yeah. Talk in first person.
Yeah. So of course, it's different for everybody. For us, it was just finding someone, a friend in Europe who can host us for we don't know how long. That's the worst. Okay, and it's interesting how sometimes you could not talk to a person for so many years, and then at this very moment, a woman who used to be my first boss years ago, like 15 years ago. Or 20 even. So she called me and she was like, and she lives in Italy. She called me, she says, Anastasia, I know what's going on. She was weeping and crying. She says, if you want to come, you have our house. And we're like, should we, shouldn't we, we don't want to be burdened, blah, blah. There's no work, or we don't know how to work here. But then we decided, your first thought right there is how to get to a safe place. Because even when we were in Lviv, western part of Ukraine, which is considered to be safer, still we had to run to a basement like every 3 hours, because the sirens go off and you have to go hide, and then you sit there for some time, and then you have to go out. So it's a constant, running. And then it's scary still. It's not like, just imagine you're sitting on the couch and then siren goes off. And it's loud. It's like the voice, this robotic voice tells you, you have to go hide somewhere. So it's very stressful. So at that point, the only thing you're thinking about is, how do I get to a safe place, somewhere when I don't, when I'm not afraid to be living. And so many women, my girlfriends who have left Ukraine, they had the same thought. Right now, not many of them had any plan at all. Some of them just fled. They're on the border. They cross it to, the border was Poland, and then they are just standing there, almost like, facing a huge ocean. They have no idea where to go.
And they're just taking whatever they have. If they have kids, they're just getting in a car with some people they know, and they're just like, let's just go. We'll figure it out when we get there.
Either that, or Polish people have started so many refugee camps over there, and they are so nice. They bring food, they bring, clothes for kids, for moms, because many of my friends just left. So I left with a bigger suitcase, but some of my friends left only with backpacks. So they don't even have clothes, basic stuff. So all the clothes is in Kyiv now. So so for my girlfriends, they would go to a refugee camp, but the thing is that you can only stay for a week in a refugee camp. So then you have to figure yourself where to go. Well, that's the rule of the refugee camps, because people keep coming. So they only can have you for a week, and then you have to, there are volunteers that would still help you with, further accommodation. But that's the worst thing that we are facing with my girlfriends right now. They've been to a refugee camp already, and now they're looking for a more or less constant place to live, at least for 2 or 3 months, because they don't want to be jumping from apartment to apartment, which makes sense, right? From country to country.
That's a really interesting random rule. Is that just this situation and these refugee camps, or is that a refugee camp rule kind of all over? You're like, I don't know.
It's like, thanks God, it's the first time I'm facing war. But it seems like it's the same for all countries, by the way.
Interesting.
And then to answer your question on who can leave, no, it's not just Ukrainians. Like my colleague, she's Armenian, but she has what we call a residence permit in Ukraine. So once she shows that, she can easily leave Ukraine. And they were, people on the border are so super nice now. They, there was a point when they would let you out only with internal passport. So we have something called internal passport and foreign passport. So when you travel abroad, you can only go with your foreign passport. Now, at some point, they said, just dump it. Let's just get them out of Ukraine.
If you had to sum up your emotions in a few words right now, or I guess, what were your emotions when it was first happening, when you're first kind of figuring out where you were going to go next, and have those emotions changed? Because it's been 2 weeks now?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Give me some words. Tell me how you're feeling.
When we got here, I felt completely lost. I was like, what are we going to do tomorrow? Where are we going to go? Where are we going to work? And then I found myself a mission with those girlfriends. So I kept myself busy all the time, and I still keep myself super busy because there's always somebody who's stranded somewhere. But then internally, you're always asking yourself a question of what's next? Where should I go? Where do I live? Do I have to be looking for a job, or can I still do what my expertise is in, still the customer experience consulting? And those questions, and again, I'm in Italy, I don't speak Italian. So I feel helpless because I can't even, today we went to get our third dose of Pfizer, and we had to go with our friend because there's no way, they don't speak English here. So those questions are so hard. Like this past weekend, I was holding up so well for my girls, but this past weekend, Sunday, I was just in bed for the whole day. I didn't want to get out. Like seriously, I was like, I'm gonna be in my bed until it's all over. You wake me up, and I go back home. Because it's a huge roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes you feel like, okay, fine, I'll do this and this. I'll do one more webinar. I'll raise money for my plurals. They will have money to rent their apartments, and you feel so hyped. And then at one moment, you're like, your emotion is so down, you don't even want to do anything. So, yeah.
One of the best ways to avoid feeling anything is to keep us busy. Give me a project to work on, give me a purpose, and I don't have to visit everything that I'm feeling. Exactly. It's really productive. And I feel like that's probably what you're doing.
Yeah, but then again, if you're not taking care of yourself and only taking care of everybody else, you still would fall into that, very deep hole of emotions.
Mm-hmm. You say you're taking care of 100 of your girlfriends. What does that look like? Is it you helping them to get to the next spot? Is it you being like, this is how you still get money? Is it you just being emotional support system, or all of the above?
Initially, it was hectic. Initially, it was one by one. So, one girlfriend would just say, Anastasia, I am in this country and I only have my hotel paid for 2 nights. Can you help? And then because I've been working internationally, thanks God, I have this beautiful network of people almost everywhere. So then, I would text a person in, let's say, Croatia, and I would say, could you please, find accommodation for my friend? And then this friend would call the other friend. And so, and then somebody would say, yeah, she can come and stay with us. But that time, I would probably need to send her money to hold her for 2 more nights at least, because it's not that fast. So in the beginning, it was mostly accommodations, right? Then number 2, but then I was like, oh my gosh, it was only 10 people in the beginning, like 10 people. I was like, okay, I can still handle 10 people.
And it literally times 10 now.
I know, it's like 100, and then in the morning it was 110. And I only accept my girlfriends. So the girlfriends I know personally, either my clients from the past or students from the business school. So I don't even accept everybody. And it just, it's the numbers keep increasing. So usually it's accommodation. Either I connect them with somebody or I pay for their apartment or hotel several nights. I haven't paid for anything, like a month, because we didn't have that funds yet. So that number 2 is jobs. And the majority of them speak great English, so they can do remote jobs like virtual assistants, digital marketing, websites. So I connected with my friends in the States, and they would give me several job postings, and I would connect with the girls. That's number 2. And number 3 is what we call an SOS fund. So when somebody's super stuck, they need groceries, or they need, yesterday a friend said, I need to get from it was probably from Poland to Spain, but I don't have the money for tickets. So, I bought her the tickets. And then also emotional support. There was a friend, she's a very good friend. She's from New York. She's very well-known, well-paid therapist, but she donates her time. And I think we only did 1 session so far, but it was so healing with her, the whole group with her. And then sometimes,
and that's such a great use of her time, instead of her doing one-on-one with 100 different girls, like everyone jump on a call, because we're all kind of going through the same thing.
Exactly. And everybody's going through the same thing. Like we're experiencing the same trauma. Yeah. And what else? And then sometimes we would have morning coffees when we just talk about whatever, they would talk about their husbands who are still in Ukraine. They would ask questions. And then everybody is on the different level in terms of this, chronology. So somebody would say, I've already been to the administration. I've got this in this document in Poland or in Hungary. And then another girl would be like, okay, but how did you find a place for your kid in school? And she's, there's somebody else who's already done it. So now it's a beautiful thing that they help each other. So it's not like I have to
Thank God.
be taking care of everyone. But yeah. So it's a constant work. It's 24/7. It's a lot.
Let me ask, is anyone taking care of you?
That's a good question. So the
TBD?
friend I'm staying, the friend I'm staying with, she's very nice, and she makes sure I eat, and she makes sure I go for a walk. And then I think it was on Saturday, she saw me like completely down, so she took me out for a surprise, and she took me to the antique market. And
Oh,
I love everything antique. I didn't buy anything, of course, because I'm trying to save as much as I can, but just being there, touching things, and admiring the beauty of those old objects was very healing. It was nice, seriously. Yeah.
you mentioned your husband's Russian, right?
Yeah.
Where is he in Italy with you right now?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I remember us talking. He grew up in Russia, right? And his
Yes.
family's still in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that. Because
So
as we said, majority of the older generation people in Russia, it's a communist country. They genuinely believe in Russia that they are helping Ukraine. And
mm-hmm.
so you were saying that your husband has been talking to his parents, and your husband's saying like, "Mom, you like Russia's bombing us. Russia's in a war with us." And his parents are saying, "No, no, 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 we're saving you." And it's so crazy how different someone's views on things due to communism, due to propaganda, can be to the actual reality of things. And his parents do not believe what he's saying, even though he's there. That blows my mind. But tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, but his example is not something extraordinary. It's for everybody who has parents or family in Russia. Elderly, elderly, because
Older
young
generations, yeah.
people, because young people still can go, online, even though I don't know if you know, but Facebook and Instagram are now banned in Russia. So they
Not
reach out
surprised.
through,
Were they
yeah.
always, or just because of this war?
No, no, just now. So they
Hmm.
are,
Isn't that
they're
convenient?
oh gosh, that's even, I don't know how it works with the stuff going on there. So yeah, they're trying, but young people still can use VPN to to look through that information. Now older people, they just watch the TV, and that's all the information they get, and it's very easy to rule a nation from a TV, right? So yeah, my husband is Russian. He's been living in Ukraine with me for, well, we've been married for like 15 years. Okay, so he's totally Ukrainian, but yeah, his mom calls now. I even avoid talking to her because she is in a very so weird. She is in a very positive state of mind. So when she calls, she'll be like, "Hey, how are you doing? We're almost done. We're almost, we have almost saved you guys. You just have to hold on." And I don't have any like patience to explain stuff. I've tried so many times, but just think how bad the propaganda is, that a mom would rather believe a TV than her own son.
Who's there experiencing it?
Who's there? And he sends her pictures. He tells her, I'm here experiencing it. You're bombing, the buildings where people live, the civilians. You're, shooting the cars with people who wanted to flee. No, she says it's all fake. And again, this is not just his mom. It's scary how bad it is. Scary, really. And when people genuinely believe that this is a good cause, nobody's going to do anything about it. Of course, they just wait for the victory, which is not happening. But
It's interesting that it is a generational thing. It is an education thing, because there's tons of protest happening in Russia of Russian civilians saying we did not want this. Like, this is not what we want. We don't want war. And in Russia, you can go to prison for 15 years
no,
if you
15
protest.
now, 15,
And
yes.
there's
And
been
they,
major
yeah.
protest.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes. And we are so thankful to those brave people who are still going out into the streets. And yeah, but it's just insane, a friend of mine, he is 18 years old, beautiful person, educated. He was just walking downtown Moscow, and because he wanted to buy gifts for his little sister. Okay, they stopped him. The police guys stopped him and asked him to show his phone, and he had a picture from the news, but it was very neutral news. It wasn't anything on Ukraine. It was news on aviation in Russia. They stopped him and they took him to jail. He was
Because
there for
he
five
knew what was
hours.
going on outside of.
Yes, they
Yeah.
thought. But now you can go to jail like for nothing, and it's so scary. It's so scary what's going on in there. I think they're going to become like the second, not China, I forgot, Korea,
North Korea.
North Korea, yes.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, China's kind of just as bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
getting there.
Those communist countries, they're culturally, there's something culturally that I think the West is not getting. Like, you can't negotiate with somebody who's representative of a communist country. Like, you can't negotiate with Putin. He doesn't operate with the same value system. Okay, like for us, a human, like there's we respect a human, we respect, you probably saw that Ukrainians are even taking out their animals with them, right? So we have this humanity, we have this kindness, and then those guys, they don't. There's a huge cultural gap between us and them. Okay, and then the West is trying to negotiate with the roaring bear. That's how I call it. And you don't negotiate with the roaring bear, right? You don't tell him, what, let's talk in a week.
But now, I was reading the news yesterday a bit, and it sounds like a lot of countries that would never ever talk to each other are now talking to each other to help sort this out. I think it was Greece and Turkey now chatting to kind of help solve things. It sounds like, I mean, when you all have a common enemy, you become friends.
Exactly.
But, and I don't want to make this too political, because I definitely wanted to talk a little bit more about your personal experience, but I want to ask you, from your viewpoint, do you think the West and other countries are doing anything right now to help?
We
And
think
West
they
meaning like
are.
us, like North America, or even the rest of Europe, like NATO countries. Are we doing anything in your perspective?
I think yes. And I'm trying to be very objective here, because I think it's what's going on right now is an unprecedented thing, right? So, but still there are laws. It's not like you can just go talk to NATO and NATO is here in the next day, right? So there are still laws, there's still, how things have always been. And I'm also, I have a feeling that we are being helped much more than it is on the news, for different reasons. Okay, I do have my former clients who are fighting now, and I know that they're getting lots and lots of international help. There are international soldiers coming. So I think that we are getting help. Yes, we would love to get more help, but I'm appreciative of everything, because if we were, just left was that bear, we would not, there's no way we would have, won. But what bothers me is that yesterday and today, CNN and then Fox News are showing, and it's very weird, because they are showing as if Ukraine is losing. And then I know from my friends who are actually fighting their fellow soldiers, we are not losing. We're even what's the military word? Counterattacking? Is that the right word? Okay.
Yeah. Like you're holding your own. You're kind of on the offense.
Yes. So I'm not sure why this rhetorics, because that is totally not true. It has always been plus minus true, but I mean the news about what's going on has always been plus minus true if you're not watching in Russian news, of course, but international, yes. But I'm not sure about that rhetorics right now, and I don't know where it is going.
Interesting. The last political point I will make is, normally the US is the first person at everyone's doorstep to help. And it's just interesting to me that, from my perspective, they're not that involved this time. I mean, I'm not a political junkie by any like point, but is it because they're part of NATO, or are they just afraid of Russia?
I can't even give you any thoughts on
and
that.
I'm just speculating, so I don't actually know.
Yeah, because we don't know. There's so much we don't know in this. And I remember, because I did work with governments, with my customer experience work. I did work with cybersecurity, with governmental offices, and just from just from talking to them, I know that what we are given is probably 10% of everything that's going on. So, and then I also understand other countries, everybody is taking care of their own people, right? So yes, there is Ukraine, everybody's sympathetic and probably sending us something to help us, fight this war. Because that's very true. If we don't stop him in Ukraine, he will go further. Like yesterday, there were bombings 20 kilometers from Polish border. So he's
I
probing.
saw that. He's coming closer to Poland. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we do need all the help we can get, like all. But when I say all, I mean all. I mean diplomatic help. I mean humanitarian help, because yes, there is a crisis, humanitarian crisis right now in Ukraine as well. And then weapons. So we need all the help we can get. But I also understand other countries, we have to be objective there. Nobody would dump their own people for the sake of the nation. So it's very tricky, and I just try to withdraw from any judging. I'm grateful for what we have. Yes, I would love to have more. I would love to see the skies close for us. You probably saw those pleading when we say NATO close the sky, because it's just awful.
Well, that's what there's protests happening in Toronto over the weekend, like where I live, and that's what they're protesting is no fly zone right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I want to switch gears and ask you about your family, because your family is still in Ukraine right now. And that they're west, but if you're saying Russia is getting closer to Polish borders, they're probably getting close to where your family is. But you told me your family has no interest in leaving. Why?
And again, it's about those older people. They just, when you're so used to your house, to where you live, and then when there is no threat, it seems like there's no threat because they're not bombing in this part, right? I think that you become you kind of relax and you think that you can still be in that place. You don't feel the urgency of leaving. Now, my dad is now helping with humanitarian aid from Europe. So right now he's in Poland. He's going to go, I think, to Italy. He'll pick up a truck with humanitarian aid and he'll bring it back to Ukraine. And I hope I was able to talk my mom into leaving to Poland, at least yesterday. Because today she slept, for 7 hours, she slept in the bathroom because the sirens went off at 1 in the morning, and they were on for the whole time until 8 in the morning. So she actually took her bed to the bathroom. So I think that she feels now that she should, leave.
She feels it's getting closer.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. But it must be so scary for you, where you're, again, people, you can be living the same situation and have a different sense of reality. You left immediately, and it must be so hard on your heart to just watch your family and just want to protect them, but them not listening to you.
Yeah, it's very hard. And then it's not that hard for me because I know my friends were trying to tell their parents to leave, and their parents are now in Kharkiv. You probably have heard that these are the worst cities right now to be in: Kharkiv, Mariupol, and they don't have any connection with them. So for 10 days, they're not able to call them. There's no connection. Like when I think about those friends of mine, I would have gone crazy. There is just no way. You don't even know if they're alive. So I'd say, and I talk to my mom and to my dad every day, several times a day. So I consider myself to be super lucky compared to those friends, right? Yeah, but it's super hard. And again, your mind, you have to understand, your mind freezes. It's telling you everything is fine. This is not really happening. You should not leave. That's a huge trick. Your mind is in shock, but that's a huge trap as well.
Well, you get sometimes so scared that you don't actually know what to do. And it's easier on your nervous system to just do nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And just hope for the best. But I mean, we talked before, it's crazy how you could be living, again, a normal life, and you actually have no control over these political potential wars. And it's nothing to do with the average day civilian at all. I want to ask you, when you think about Russia as a whole versus Putin and just do you see them separately? Do you have a negative view on like Russian people in general, or do you see it as like, no, this is just this leader?
See, I think it's easier for me to separate because like my husband is Russian, right? Then the friends that I have in Russia, they are so, they keep texting me saying, Anastasia, we're so sorry for everything going on. This is just wrong. They even yeah, I won't say that they helped me because I don't know if somebody's going to listen to this and they will be in trouble. But anyway, good support from my friends, right? So it's easy for me to separate, but I can also see how it wouldn't be easy for a friend of mine who was in the bomb shelter for 14 days without any gas and no food. Okay, I think that it's easier for me to separate and to be kind of tolerant in this, just because I wasn't in horrific situation. Okay, and I don't have that much anger. And for them, when they saw
Interesting.
this, yes, I think for them it's much harder.
That's a really fascinating point. And what this what this reminds me of, it's like anything. You can look at, for example, that's closer to where I am, you can look at 9/11 and the World Trade Center. There are people, older generations for sure, that both in the States and Canada that absolutely hate anyone from that country. It doesn't matter. Like they hate anyone with that religion, they hate anyone from that country, and it has nothing to do with that individual person. But they have that stereotype and that fear in them right now just because of world leaders and certain individuals causing that to happen. Now you hate an entire country. And it's because people look at it as, I suffered and I hate it. I have anger towards it. So just as you're saying with some of the people in Ukraine right now, if they're stuck in bomb shelters and kind of struggling to survive, they might come out of this with a lot of hatred towards an entire nation of people that it's nothing to do with them. And that makes me
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, of course, but I can't judge them either, because
No,
if
of
they saw
course
their
not.
friends being killed, they would ask a legit question. They would ask every Russian, why didn't you go out on the streets? Not just, thousands. They would ask about millions of people coming out on the streets and stopping this crazy guy. And that would be a legit question, right? So, yeah.
What breaks my heart, again, I agree with you. I have no judgment because I would probably feel the same. I would probably have that internal hatred and that internal stereotype view on it. I probably would. I can't say I wouldn't. But what breaks my heart is because that happened, you are just not sorry, you we're just fueling, and this situation is just fueling more hatred and division of people. And I don't understand how that solves anything ever.
It doesn't. It even makes things worse. And then you're also thinking maybe that was a purpose of those governments too, right? So yeah, but
And then we start
yeah.
believing, okay, well, maybe this should have happened. And you see how the propaganda can happen and how you can believe, even though when you lay it down factually, this is not okay. But you can see how you can start understanding one side of it, which I don't want us to be doing.
I know, but it's a very deep ethical question. It
Yes.
really, it is. It is.
I loved
Because
ethics classes.
yeah, but it is like, yeah, we're supposed to love each other, yes. So it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be taking weapons and protecting our country. No, it means that we should be protecting others. So, but it's a very deep conversation on ethics, I guess, and then some moral values.
I mean, you being a professor at a university school, these are the type of topics that you want to be talking about. And these are the type of
Exactly.
discussion we're talking politics, we're talking ethics. Now we're getting into philosophy.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Yes. And it's funny, not funny though, but it's also, war just pushes everything into such extremes and makes everything black and white. We've always been told that, there's no black and white, there are always gray zones, but now I don't think so, and because I'm also a Christian, so many Christians would be like, oh, we have only to sit and pray And then there are other Christians who actually take weapons and go defend their countries, okay, their country. So there are so many, you can, when there's no war, when nobody is killed, you can be, sitting in a beautiful place and having those beautiful discussions over a glass of wine. But when somebody is killed in your, in your own yard, and I don't know if you saw those awful pictures
I've seen
of
many.
families being buried in like in the yards.
It's
Okay,
Nazi
because there's no
Germany all
bed.
over again. And
Yeah.
you would be naive to believe that it's not.
See, and so then everything just becomes black or white, right? You're either a friend or an enemy. There's no place for deep discussions.
And because you don't want to hear someone else's view of it, you don't want to hear but what if, what about this perspective? You think this is the situation that I'm dealing with. I'm watching people around me get killed. This is real life. This is factual. I don't understand how you can want me to see it a different way. This is how I see it. And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
While I have you for a couple more minutes, I want to just ask you, what do you think anyone listening to this, what else do you want them to understand from your perspective and your individual experience going through this right now?
Several things that resonate a lot. And I think I will prepare a speech on that because I'm also a speaker and it resonates so much.
Hey, TEDx, you have to do it.
I don't TEDx in Ukraine. It's not something that I've done. I've done several things and but it's not about that. It's more about the impact now. So several things. Number one, everything is extremely fragile. And I don't know about you, but for me, a notion of safety and a notion of safety was always connected with my job. Like I work, I'm professional, I'm certified all over, I go study more, then I provide more value to my customers, I work more, I get paid more, and thus I'm safe, right? Now this notion of safety is like completely burned down because, I still have some clients, but they're just, you can't even compare it to what it was. This is just survival clients. And everything is stopped. So your notion of safety is broken down. And when your notion of safety is broken down, you're so lost completely. So right now, I don't have 3 tips to feel safe.
No, and we're not asking you that.
No, but I'm still figuring that out for myself. But just try to, ask yourself where your safety is. Because if it's in those material things that I've just told you about, you will go, you will be in a very deep place emotionally. So that I'm thinking about a lot. And then second thing is about the network. And this will be helpful to people in business. Do you have some listeners who are in business, entrepreneurs?
All of us.
Business owners?
All of us.
Awesome. Awesome.
I come from the 9-to-5 corporate world and then switched into real estate. And I have a lot of entrepreneur friends as well. So yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So everyone.
You're my people. You will understand.
Yes, exactly.
And again, remember, I teach at the business school. So So I am rethinking the word of network and the notion of network. Because even the word itself, net and work, right? So it presupposes, and we say things like we're expanding our network, we are networking, right? So almost having this on the back of our minds that we are using this net for work in the future. Almost like, but then, how do I provide value for them so that they can provide value for me? Then it's a win-win, and everything is beautiful then. But the only thing that stays when everything else is lost is actually your network. But because people who are helping me right now are some people I only saw on Zoom several times when I did my webinars, or even once. But I made sure I made real connection with those people. I didn't tell them, hey, what does your business do? Please join my Facebook group. Spam block.
Yep.
No, this is not a connection. Or even, hey, I'd like to see how we can support each other. Why don't you check out my website? No. So It's not about the network. It's about real connections that might or might not, bring you something in the future. There is no win-win in the situation where I am right now. Okay, there's no win-win. People helping me and my girlfriends, there is no win-win. Nobody knows when my girlfriends will be able to, even send you a box of chocolates.
But that's
right?
why they're helping you. They're not looking for
Yeah.
anything in return.
Exactly. But if I were to build those relationships in terms of, join my Facebook group, I'm going to give you this and give you this, then it wouldn't have been possible. So I would like to encourage everybody who's listening, build real connections with people that you like, not just with people who have so many followers that you kind of, you're pushed to make friends with them. No, you like the person, make a connection. You don't like the person, don't make that connection, because that is genuine. And again, I lost everything. I was crying today about my stilettos, because I lost my beautiful stilettos. They're in Kyiv now.
But you laugh now, but I mean, we would all be there. We would be thinking the same thing.
Things. Yeah, little things. I was dreaming about that pair of stilettos. I was finally able to buy them because they're expensive, and now they're in Kyiv. So anyway, yeah, but I lost everything. I just have one suitcase, 3 pairs of jeans, and it's not like you can go. I do have savings, thanks God, but it's not like you can go and buy the jeans because you're trying to save as much as you can, right? But what is not lost, all those beautiful connections with the people anywhere, and they help. So yeah, I would really encourage everybody to rethink this.
What I'm hearing from you is we just got to remember that we are humans on this earth. Who cares where we work? Who cares what job we have, or how much money we make, or how many possessions we have? Because it's when it's all taken away, the question is, who are you, and who are you surrounding yourself with? And are you surrounding yourself with people who are going to be there for you when you need them the most? That's what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, that's true as well. Beautifully said.
Last but not least, I have a feeling that people are going to want to connect with you further. They're going to want to chat more, or just follow along to kind of what you're saying. They're going to want to see whatever speeches you do next, because I know I do. So I want to ask you, where can everyone find you after this?
So Facebook will probably be the best, because I am 24/7 on Facebook, because the group for the girls is on Facebook, right? But I'm also on LinkedIn, not so often on Instagram. And yeah, just send me a message and follow. I'm trying to post different things, some factual information about what's going on, and only from trusted contacts. I don't repost stuff just because it looks nice. And that, and also my own views and what I'm going through emotionally. And so if you want to, please do.
Before I let you go, I meant to ask this. Everyone listening today as well, we see tons of fundraisers and places to donate money. And I think I'm going to speak for myself. I think I'm almost overwhelmed by how many places and options there are. And I think I just want to know from you personally, how can I help? Should I be donating money, and where should it be going? Should I just be sharing what's going on? Like, everyone wants to be doing something, but I think not many people know what they should be doing. So what would you say is the best way?
I completely understand you on those fundraisers, because even I get sponsored fundraising campaigns, like even they, big one. So there are several official links. And if you can go and just Google official links for donations. One is, it depends on what you want to do. Some people want to donate to soldiers. Some people want to donate to different NGOs, and their tones. Just go and look at official. So the official ones will always have the GOV, governmental, GOV dot something or .gov. So look for that. Now, I also heard about a beautiful thing. Some people go ahead and book several nights in Ukraine on Airbnb.
I know. So, okay. So
that's so cute.
And should I be doing that? That's a great idea.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Because the money goes directly to the host. You're not staying, but the host still gets some money to survive. Yeah. And that's beautiful.
That's not orchestrated by Airbnb CEO.
It's not.
No, it's not.
It's
And
not. It's
he's
not.
no, but I mean, I saw some of his like tweets and posts where he's just like, I love this community, like great idea. And he's
Yeah.
just like, cool.
I know, it's cute. It's cute. So that I
Okay.
loved. And yeah, and so people are usually asking me if I accept donations for my girlfriend. So I would like to, to state that here. I don't feel comfortable just accepting donations. So what I'm doing, I have 5 webinars right now that I'm selling. So and the price isn't even fixed. Okay, so every webinar is $70, and everything around my own expertise, customer experience, keeping your clients, what to say and what to not say to clients, so that they don't become, I call them a dinosaur, so that they don't become angry at you, and how to prevent customers from dropping off, all of that. And you can go ahead and you can buy a webinar. So let's say you just paid, I don't know, $5, because you can go and manually change the price. Okay, I left that spot so that you can, go ahead, change the price. Even if you don't come to the webinar, that's okay, but I will still send you the recording. This way I know that I provided some value for you. And then I'm going to use this money, as I told you, either for groceries for my girlfriends or for hotels. Or now I'm overwhelmed with requests of longer stays for my girls, and I have no idea how to handle that. But it will come. It will come sometime.
Right.
Yeah.
Anastasia, please send me all of those links so I can make sure they're readily available for everyone and I can start sharing them around. Thank you so much for just you're going through so much. The fact that you are dedicating even more time to like have these conversations and even in a position to be having these conversations is just phenomenal and inspirational. And my heart is just with you so much. It's really scary what you're going through.
Yeah, but thank you, because you're helping me as well. It's once you talk about that, you talk it through, then you don't feel so scared. So that's helping me as well.
Just know anyone listening to this is thinking about this all day long, and in a way that people are like, how the hell do I help? And should I be like, what should I be doing? Like I just spoke about, but also I think majority of people are realizing there's nothing stopping this I could be in this situation any day. And I think that's where a lot of people's human compassion and humanity and empathy come from. And just know that so many people are feeling that for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really highly appreciated. Even, words of encouragement, that's already a lot.
Thank you again.
Thank you.